the more that we can learn kindness in our language, and the more gentle and resonant and precise we are with our communication, the more gentle we are with each other's brains, especially with children's brains.
Cue music. Places, everybody places. We're starting in 3, 2.
Welcome to the Autoimmune Hour, where we look at the rise of autoimmune disorders. I've brought together top experts that range from doctors, specialists, nutritionists, researchers, and even those recovering from autoimmune to bring you the latest, most up-to-date information about autoimmunity and how to live your life uninterrupted.
Thank you for joining us here on the Autoimmune Hour with Sharon Saylor. Always seek sound legal, medical, and or professional advice regarding any problems, conditions, and any of the recommendations you see, hear, or read here on the Autoimmune Hour, Understanding Autoimmune, and Life Interrupted Radio. Now, we don't want you to worry about taking too many notes, so you can join the Autoimmune Hour's Courage Club, and we'll send you the transcripts and show notes from every episode. Sign up now at understandingautoimmune.com. Now, back to your host, Sharon Saylor.
Welcome, everyone, to the Autoimmune Hour. I'm Sharon Saylor from SharonSaylor.com, and as always, it's my pleasure to be with you here tonight on another brand new episode, and I am so excited. We have a return guest. She just always stimulates us to thinking new ways, thinking beyond our limiting beliefs, thinking beyond our little boxes, and I am quoting this woman constantly in all sorts of things, not only here on the Autoimmune Hour, but in my corporate work as well, because she really has insight into quick and easy transformation. Don't we all love that? She might disagree with me how quick and easy, but I find so many of her insights just to be where I'm awestruck and it stays with me. And those are the moments that I find I can transform the quickest. When I'm awestruck, it just stays right there in my memory. So I'm not going to quit wasting time here and introduce Sarah Peyton. You guys probably have known her. She's been on the show before. And tonight we're going to talk about something that when she suggested the title, my mind went 100 different directions. And first, let me introduce her. She's an international speaker and facilitator, and she just has the biggest heart and a passion for weaving together neuroscience knowledge and experiences of healing to help us unify our brains and our bodies and, what's going on in our systems to make sure our emotions are in alignment with ourselves and for our highest good. She makes interpersonal neurobiology research available to all of us. That's what I like to say, because she can bring all this science talk down to a place where we can understand it and immediately use it. She's a certified trainer in nonviolent communication and an experienced facilitator in family constellation work. And I could go on and on. I love her book, Your Resident Self, but let's get on with this because I just can't wait to hear her latest brilliance. We're going to talk about alarmed aloneness. Alarmed aloneness. When she brought me that title, I was like, wow. As I said, my mind went 100 different directions. So, Sarah, what's your definition of alarmed aloneness?
Well, alarmed aloneness is the state where we get elevated heart rate and elevated cortisol because somebody who's important to us has disappeared. So this will happen for people with when you have a broken heart. This is a state of alarmed aloneness. It hurts. It's stressful. It can drag on for years where it hurts and it's stressful. People will experience alarmed aloneness when they lose somebody that they love to death. When there's incarceration in a family, there will be alarmed aloneness. In cases of divorce, of course, and separation, people are dealing with alarmed aloneness. When you have a child that grows up and goes off to live their own life, and you're left without that little presence in the house, that's alarmed aloneness. There are so many places where we, in our social human bodies, experience the loss of somebody else physically.
Wow. Now, this might be tangential, but bear with me here. Luckily, Sarah is okay with me running down rabbit holes. But would that relate to the loss of a pet, too?
Oh, my God, yes. Thank you for naming that. The loss of a pet. I think it can also be like if you have a house that you love that you have to move away from. there can be that experience, because we often love our dwellings and have a sense of them loving us. I mean, anything that really has a presence for us. I think when people lose a sense of trust in God, that this can happen as well. So it's anything that really is important to us. I got really inspired by the woman who was like, tidy up your life, and I ended up throwing away my stuffed dog from when I was 3, because I was like, I don't need this anymore. I still like why did I do that? It was like 5 years ago. I'm 56 years old, and I'm going, where is my dog? And that is also, a state of alarmed aloneness.
I'm glad you brought that up. It's so funny. You said that, and my mind immediately went to the container that's this little red and white stuffed dog I've had for decades. We won't get quite as...
Don't get too inspired by the magic of tidying up.
Yes, exactly. Oh my gosh, I didn't think about that. I have another question that's also tangential, but I'm going to put that on the side while we follow this train of thought for a minute. Now, when I think of this, it's definitely in my mind part of the fight, flight, or freeze. But what are some of the things we'd noticed about it versus where you're absolutely in what I call a hyper state of alert, in fight, flight, or freeze? I got to run.
Well, it's so wonderful that you're mentioning our nervous system and this idea of fight, flight, and freeze. Because, in the Western world, in the colonized world, we're like, okay, here's the nervous system states: fight, flight, freeze, which means that we're leaving out some very important elements of nervous system states. And one of the states that we're leaving out is alarmed aloneness. So I actually now, when I'm talking about the nervous system, I will often say fight, flight, alarmed aloneness, and freeze, in order to put it into its right place when we're working with this learning, because otherwise we don't validate ourselves for this state of alarm. And the alarm includes elevated heart rate, elevated blood pressure, elevated rates of cortisol. So it's like we're looking for what we've lost. I don't know if you've ever had this experience that someone you love has died, and you find yourself, you're in a public place, and you're searching, your eyes are searching. Could that be them? You see a back that looks a little familiar, like, could that be them? It's like the body and the cells don't even quite know how to adjust to losses sometimes. And we can stay in this place for quite some time.
Wow. Now, I was shaking my head there if you're not watching the video, about understanding what you said about seeing someone's back or the color of the hair for a moment, the length of hair, and just thinking for a moment, oh my gosh, that's so-and-so, and they're not there. I'm curious how this differentiates, because I'm thinking that some of the things you're saying, a medical professional might just say, oh, anxiety.
Anxiety is such a wonderful topic. So let me just circle back around to catch the other state of the nervous system that we haven't named yet, which is social engagement. So we really have these 3 states. We have a frozen, kind of collapsed or immobilized state. We have this middle ground of sympathetic activation that we traditionally call fight-flight, that we're adding alarmed aloneness to. Then we have the social engagement state, which is this wonderful place where we have full access to our whole beings and our capacity for social connection. So the nervous system itself, it has these states. I wonder about this too, like, what do medical professionals say when people have heartbreak, and do they name it anxiety? I mean, how much of the anxiety that we all carry is actually a frozen state of alarmed aloneness?
Well, that's what I was wondering, because I thought of your situation, and if I lost Squeaky, I would have named it sort of this weird anxiety I should just get over.
What happens for your body when we name it alarmed aloneness? When we say, well, of course you would experience alarmed aloneness.
It relaxes a little bit. I'm not sure it eases the pain of the thought if I lost Squeaky, and I haven't thought about Squeaky in, 40 years since I packed him away. But now that we're on the topic, I'm thinking about that, and and it could relate to your reaction.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
when I hear alarmed aloneness, my mind goes multiple ways, and I'm circling back to that place. I said I was going to put it in a placeholder, but also oftentimes I travel, and oftentimes I travel alone, or sometimes you're in your home alone, or whatever you're doing, and you're alone. And someone with a medical condition, and I also have allergies, goodness sakes, there are times where my aloneness alarms me, because maybe what happens if I have a reaction, or my illness flares and I'm alone. Is that the same or a different type of alarmed aloneness?
Oh, I think that is definitely there in the experience of alarmed aloneness. And so it can be quite a common experience when we're dealing with any kind of ongoing issues that keep us isolated. There's a quite stunning story of a man who was speaking publicly, and he actually brought two hearts, and he brought a smoker's heart, and he showed the audience the smoker's heart. So this is a real formaldehyded heart in a bottle.
Oh, shocking.
And they could see, they could see the damage that the smoking had done to the heart, and everybody knows, all about smokers, impact on health and so on. And then he brought another heart to show the audience, and he said, "What? Look at this heart. This heart has just as much or more damage than the smoker's heart, and this is a heart that was lonely."
Wow.
Yeah, we are physically impacted by the stress of aloneness. So it's very important for us, when we're holding ourselves with warmth and care in the experience of any kind of isolation that comes with health issues, to begin to be able to name what's true. And this is important. The naming is important, as we've spoken before, Sharon, many times, about how when we give words to emotional experience, it eases the emotional experience a little bit. That there's a feedback loop in the human body, where the human body sends messages up to the brain, and the way that the body knows that that the brain has received the message is if there's a kind of a touching, like if our words create neural connections that go right to the emotion that we're feeling, then there's a bit of relaxation in the body. And if we never bring the words for that emotional experience, so we're able to name anger, so that our body relaxes. We're able to name fear, so the body relaxes. But then there's still this message of alarmed aloneness. If we don't have the words for it, we can't name it. So the body can't ever relax into it.
That is amazing to me, because I'm thinking, as you go through that process, just when we started discussing this topic a while ago, offline preparing for the show, I remember when you brought it up, and all of a sudden, I wasn't even 100% sure your definition of it at the time, but there was an instant relaxation in my body.
Yeah, this happens for me. I'm traveling internationally. I'm speaking to audiences all over the world, and I say, fight, flight, and alarmed aloneness, and the room just goes quiet, and people are like, oh my God, you've named something that's been true for me that I've never had named.
Now, I don't like to put things on categories or layers, but I'm just trying to put it in perspective in my mind. It almost feels as if alarmed aloneness is sort of this quiet river running in the background for a lot of the time. Now, versus I know when I'm in freeze, or I know when I'm in fight, but I'm wondering if does sometimes alarmed aloneness get kind of stuck on?
I think it does. It also can be, remember when we were talking about our nervous system states with social engagement, fight, flight, and freeze, and then immobilization. Immobilization is where we've given up hope. Immobilization is where we're stepping into kind of a helplessness or an incapacity to move, a low energy. And this is often true for us when we're really struggling with health issues, that the long struggle and the lack of clear support will take us into an immobilized place. And so it's almost like the vibratory qualities of that immobilized state tell us which emotion has gone into a freeze. Are we in an angry immobilized state? Are we in a terrified immobilized state? Or are we in an alarmed aloneness immobilized state, or a lonely immobilized state? And for many of us, we enter this place often much earlier than one would think. We are often even entering this state of loneliness that's persistent and long-term, even in infancy.
Wow. Yes, we've talked about the connection to family members before. And one of the things I'm curious about, we're talking about connection and community, and correct me, but one of the things that I'm just absolutely curious about is oftentimes I hear from people in the community, well, thank you, Sharon, for the show. You get me. I know I'm not alone. My family doesn't understand. Even though which is wonderful, and I love it. And yet there's some heartbreak that there's this disconnect, even though I know the people in my world love and care and connection with me, yet oftentimes I hear about this disconnect of, well, I know they love me, but they just really don't understand what I'm going through.
Yeah, so true, so often true. And what we need more than anything else as humans is for that circuit of understanding to be completed. So one of the things that you're doing for your audience, and that I hope that I get to contribute to once in a while, is you're bringing the people that you care so much for the understanding that allows them to leave the state of frozen and immobilized, alarmed aloneness.
Yeah, I love that in our community here, we're able to share, and each other's nodding their head, oh, yeah, I hear you there, or I'm understanding. Now, let me take it a sidestep, though. If we are a caregiver, or we are the loved ones, and we are deeply concerned about our other loved one who has the autoimmune condition, what are some ways that, even though we can't, I'll put in air quotes, walk in their shoes, what are some ways we can help make that connection you're talking about, so they know that we truly do want to be connected and we truly are caring, even though we cannot possibly begin to understand their experience of the chronic illness?
Sure. This is a wonderful question, and it takes us right into my long-term exploration of what I call resonant language, which is language that lets people feel like we're sitting beside them instead of telling them what to do or pinning them down or objectifying their experience, but instead we're sitting beside them. And the biggest skill of all, the biggest tool in our resonant language toolbox is one that's very sweet for holding people who are struggling with really big life-changing stuff. And that is the skill of acknowledgement of what is. It sounds sort of like talking about air. It sounds like it would be so simple. But really what it is it's where we would stop and listen to a partner or a child or a parent who's struggling with autoimmune, and we would say, instead of trying to fix, instead of trying to plump the pillows, instead of trying to bring water, instead of trying to clear the schedule, but if we would just pause for a moment and say something like, do you need acknowledgement of how exhausted you are? It's just a pause for accompaniment, what I call accompaniment. Do you need acknowledgement that it's difficult to even figure out how to get your muscles to move? So you just take one of the little truths that the person is struggling with, because they'll give us little cues or hints. I can't track anything. Do you need acknowledgement that your brain doesn't work the way you wish it would. And just that pause is such an interesting pause. Now, sometimes people will say, no, I don't need acknowledgement of that. That's already very clear.
That's kind of went through my mind a little bit. That question could go either way.
Right. But it's a start, right? And so if somebody said, no, I don't need that acknowledgement, I might say, well, I think I would have to stop and breathe for a moment because I get alarmed. I'm alarming myself. I'm feeling a little alarmed aloneness. I'm reaching out for you, and you're coming back with a no. And I just might say, it's already your life. This is your life. This is not something you need acknowledgement for. This is your life. Just like a way to leave the words behind and just get into into what still is, in essence, acknowledgement.
So after we get to that point, I'm coming from the patient perspective. I think I'm curious about how your experience would be if I was on the other side of that and someone said that to me. I think I would also like to hear just something like, so I understand deeper, what do you need? Is that too poignant? Is that too direct? Is there a way to soften that with the resonant language that would allow them to know that I'm trying to connect?
The way you said that was so warm. It just kind of went right into my heart. I think there's something here where it doesn't have to be any particular words, that it's that honest and authentic desire to connect with somebody else and to get a little bit of their experience. We can also move into metaphor a bit to see if we understand. So, Sharon, if we took just an element of your life on your journey, what's an alive element in this moment of your life on your journey?
I would say food allergies. Having to limit my food, and food is such a connection type community project in my world.
Yeah, no kidding. Oh my goodness. So, I'll start with acknowledgement, and then you can say no or whatever you want to say. But I'll start with acknowledgement. Sharon, do you need acknowledgement that the food allergies cut into a very sweet, warm community connection that you love almost more than anything?
Wow, Sarah, my first response was going to be, no, I'm a big girl. That was sort of what was going on when you first started that path.
Yeah.
But the way you said it, my heart just wanted to scream yes by the time we're done with the question.
Yeah.
I wanted, part of me, with the food allergies, food sensitivities, it's very limiting, obviously hidden, and a lot of people don't believe it to be true. Oh, just have a little bite, or what have you. And I think that it's so. My first response was going to be quite defensive, yet the tone of your voice, the pacing, that you were doing it with full breathing, really hit my heart instead of my thought brain.
Yeah, I think there's just something where if we're really genuinely wondering, do we understand our friend?
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, as always, when Sarah and I get together, I've blown past that commercial break. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, I want to talk to Sarah about, I know this is from Nonviolent Communication, but explain the difference between want and need, because in some of that language we use the word need, and I'd like to know the difference between want and need. So we'll be right back.
Life Interrupted Radio will return after these messages from our sponsors. It's great sponsors like these that keep this show coming to you every week. Be sure and stop by lifeinterruptedradio.com to learn more.
Your conscious lifestyle on steroids. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Hello, I'm Lisa Berry. Join me every Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time for Light on Living. A chance to see new, hear different, and feel more as I shine the spotlight on all the ways to lighten the load of life's challenges. Light on Living is your link to that new way you're looking for, that new understanding that will enhance your life, and that positive connection that will support your growth. So join me and you'll gain insight and start to see things in a new way that motivates you.
OMTimes magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Listen and imagine. It takes 5 seconds to send a text, and for those 5 seconds, you're driving blind. Life is worth more than a text. Stay alive. Don't text and drive.
Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org, a message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, Noise, and the Ad Council.
Hi, this is Sharon, and of course you know me from here on the Autoimmune Hour. Maybe you don't know I'm also an author. My latest book is for kids. It's Pinky Chenille and the Rainbow Hunters, a winner of a 5-star Reader's Favorite review. It's perfect for your early reader and a great bedtime story for your young adventurers. Check it out over at pinkychenille.com. That's PinkyChenille.com. See you there. Welcome back, everyone, to the Autoimmune Hour. I'm Sharon Saylor from SharonSaylor.com, and tonight we're here with the awesome Sarah Peyton. Every time I talk to her, I just get more entranced because the way that she is able to language things that talk past our thinking mind and connect to that part of us that wants to be connected to, and our heart is so amazing. She's been sharing with us this alarmed aloneness topic that she has become well known for. Now, Sarah, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but this is your creation, is it? Am I correct?
This is me pulling together an awareness of, it's really two different researchers. One of my favorite things is to bring together bodies of work and see how they fit together and how they illuminate each other. So we've got Stephen Porges, who's the fellow who does the polyvagal theory, which is these nervous system states that we've been talking about. Then we have another researcher whose name is Jaak Panksepp, who died several years ago, who developed a whole theory of work based around our emotional and motivational circuits. So he says we have a fear circuit. Great. We know we've got that. We've got flight in our nervous system list. He says we've got a rage circuit. You and I have had that wonderful conversation about life-serving rage that some of the audience will remember. And then we have a grief panic circuit. That's the circuit that activates in baby animals when their mother is missing. And so I was working with these two, and I'm like, okay, here's fight and here's flight. Where's alarmed aloneness? Where's the grief panic circuit when we're talking about the nervous system? So I am the person who has brought Panksepp into Porges to say.
And I love both of their works. I could go through a whole long list of other people who I know that you and I both adore. And so thank you for that. And that's what I love about you. I've said in the beginning how Sarah has this awesome ability to bring together all of these scientific researchers and bring it into, well, I'll say the common person, my ability to understand this deep scientific work. And that's one of her many amazing gifts, is this ability to bring the scientific research down to where the rest of us can understand it. And
how the heck can we use this stuff to make our lives better?
Absolutely. Now, I wanted to ask before we went on the commercial, I know about nonviolent communication. I've studied it a little bit. And one of the things that is deep really embedded into that is making sure you understand the difference between a want and a need. And some of our language when we began to acknowledge was, do you need? And let's talk a little bit about the difference between what words we would use. Because I'm thinking, do you want or do you need acknowledgement? Do you want acknowledgement? I kind of react differently to those two invitations.
Yeah, there is a difference in what we're asking. We're kind of asking almost like, is there something here that's essential to your well-being when we're asking that question about needs, right? And if we're asking want, then it's less essential to our well-being. It's more like a desire or a wish. I love the word wish, though. And we can actually use all of these different verbs that really are about our essential beings longing for things in the world. We can use all of these different verbs. Marshall was a deep thinker about the way language is used, and he had some very specific ways that he was thinking about things when he was developing. Marshall Rosenberg, the fellow who developed nonviolent communication, when he was thinking about especially this concept of needs, which was really revolutionary in terms of bringing it into common everyday language. It's really the foundation of nonviolent communication. But one of the things that I love is, and we've talked about the idea of the impossible dream guess before. You may remember our impossible dream guesses from previous conversations. But in an impossible dream guess, I might say, Sharon. So I'll come back. Is it okay if I come back to the food allergy question? Okay. So I might say, Sharon, would you love it if any plate that you took at a community meal would magically be stripped of all of its allergic qualities, and you would have both safety and warm community, and it would just look like you were eating the same thing as everybody else?
Absolutely, yes. I'm on board, 110%. I love this. And you also had, in one of our early conversations, the topic of I wonder as a way of sort of coming in, I'll say, a side door as well. But the way you presented that about the luscious plate, I was on board 110%.
So it's like we can really use a lot of different words when our intention is accompaniment. It's sort of it's sort of like if we imagine, so we can kind of come at relationship as if we've got a wrench and a hammer, in our hand, and we're gonna take care of it for our friend. We're gonna make sure that our friend does not suffer or suffers as little as possible. We're gonna fix life for them. Or we can come beside our friend almost like we're carrying a big question mark. Is it like this for you? Do I understand you? Do I get to sit beside you? It's a very different way to be.
It is a different way to be. Now, I'm curious, though. I could see that both ways would be useful in certain circumstances.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes showing I have a toolbox is helpful in creating change when maybe there's urgent need to create change, to create a shift.
Not only that, but it's very sweet to begin to notice the love behind the tools. So I remember I was talking, I don't think I've told this story before on this show. I was talking to a friend, and I was having a great deal of mourning about global climate crisis stuff. Just so much. I was weeping. And then my friend was holding me with great compassion and warmth and accompaniment. And then I was like, I start to feel better. And I realized that I had something really cool to share with this friend. And I said, do you know what? I get to go to the theater tomorrow night. And it's a show I already saw that made me laugh so hard I almost cried. And I get to take my son and my husband, and I'm going to sit there and watch them. I'm going to watch them laugh. It's going to be so wonderful. And my friend said to me, good luck with that. And I was like, oh my God, I was just like taken aback. And then I was like, okay, if this is a hammer or a wrench, what's going on? What's the love behind it? And so I said to my friend, are you really worried that I'll be disappointed and that my family won't laugh? And my friend said, yes, you were so sad about the global climate crisis. I can't bear for you to be sad anymore.
Wow, that's how sweet.
Yeah.
Even if it sounded like a hammer.
You know? Yeah, it sounded like a hammer to the head. But what sweetness to have this, like, looking for the love behind people's hammers and, wrenches.
There's a quotable. Okay, say that again, because that is so profound. Looking for the love behind people's hammers.
People's hammers and wrenches.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is so powerful. And the way that you just said that a little bit before was the question when you had the courage to question the statement.
Yeah.
Because a lot of us might have just sat there in stunned silence.
Right.
And maybe even walked away and said, well, done with him, her,
Exactly.
I'm out of here.
Right. Yeah.
But having that courage that you have with the language of accompaniment, I like that, the language of accompaniment, to delve a little deeper, dig a little farther into, goodness, where did that come from?
Right. If we're trusting that the other person loves us, then what the heck's going on with those statements, right?
Right. But how often do they happen? Whether behind the intention, and sometimes it can just be, I'm busy, I have to get going kind of statement that sounds a little rough. Or in this case, obviously I would be totally taken aback by, what the heck? That was out of left field.
Yeah. I was doing a couples counseling piece the other day, and the husband, who has done this before, he said to the wife, I just don't think that what you're hoping for is going to happen. I just don't think that it's gonna I want you to know I don't think it's gonna turn out the way that you're hoping. And it's it sounded quite grim, right? And I said, husband, are you sad when your wife is disappointed? And he said, well, yes.
Like, duh.
And I said, would you please say to your wife, I'm sad when you're disappointed? And he said to her, I'm sad when you're disappointed. And I said, how is that for you to hear, wife? And she said, well, it makes me angry. He doesn't want me to have feelings. And I said, are you responsible for his feelings? She said, well, yes. And I said, let's look at the unconscious contract. Do you have an unconscious contract to carry the responsibility for everybody's feelings? She said, I think so. And she released it. And then I said, say this to her again. Say, I'm sad when you're disappointed. So the husband said it again. I'm sad when you're disappointed. And I said, what happens for you, wife? And she said, I'm happy. He cares about me.
I just love your work. And everyone, we do have a show on the unconscious contract, these sacred contracts we make with ourselves, oftentimes from early childhood. So check that out, because you can hear how profound and how quickly understanding these little and sometimes big unconscious contracts we make with ourselves, unbeknownst to ourselves. And since our show, Sarah, I've been bumping into those contracts left and right. And it was the naming of it. We're going back to this idea of naming alarmed aloneness. It was the naming of, Sharon, of course we make sacred contracts and unconscious contracts with ourselves all the time. And when we walked through the process in one of our shows, I think it was 2 shows ago, everyone just go to understandingautoimmune.com and type in the search bar Sarah. You'll see all of our shows. And be sure and listen to them all. They're all great. But this one especially, what I notice now is when I'm in conversation with people, that will pop into my head. I wonder if that's an unconscious contract they have somewhere in there.
You've got a very good chance of being right. And then they stop, right? So one of the reasons I brought this story up is because the woman's unconscious contract put her in a silo where she didn't get to receive the love until she let go of the silo. She was in there in alarmed aloneness with this terrible sense of not being known or seen and having so much responsibility. So we will silo ourselves in ways that prevent us understanding and seeing. So here we come back to my story about my friend. If I really believe that this friend loves me, then what's happening? It's not that he doesn't love me. He's not trying to be mean. It's something else.
Wow.
And when we begin to be able to trust that people love us, the alarmed aloneness begins to fall away.
Now, I want to reflect back. Talk some more about these silos, because I'm seeing where there is just ripe for miscommunication, because the person on the outside of the silo thinks they're doing everything correctly or trying to show love, yet we're holding this unconscious contract that does not make it able for us to hear at that level we need to hear. So what are some ways you help people explore the silo idea? Do we get past the idea of, I'm thinking like a silo could be multiple unconscious contracts. Maybe I'm only aware of one of my unconscious contracts, but
it's like we can be built, behind a whole brick wall of them in a way. But I think one of the sweet things that comes from Marshall Rosenberg is the idea that everything that people say to us is either please or thank you.
Tell me more. I'm totally intrigued. Is that similar to Gottman's work around bidding, where a couple will often be miscommunication when the one party doesn't pick up the bid for a connection that the other party said, such as a couple driving down the road and the wife leans over to the husband and says, would you like some tea? And she's really wanting to stop for tea, and he keeps driving, says, no, I'm good. And then she gets upset because he doesn't take the clue that she wanted to stop for tea. Right.
Absolutely. So there are contracts in play there, that are leaving those two couples siloed. So we are create a world for ourselves in which if we aren't hearing the love behind, you said this yourself a little bit ago, you said, if we weren't really hearing the love there, we might walk away from this person. Say, well, that's it. I'm not going to be around them anymore.
Oh, I can see that easily happening. If what your friend said, well, good luck with that, in that tone, I could easily see people saying, well, F you.
Yes, exactly.
Thanks for sitting on my happiness here.
Yeah. And it's a bit like, how are we perceiving the world? Like, where are we sitting when we're looking at the world? Are we sitting, because we can be sitting inside of the silo and it can be difficult to get out, but we can also invite ourselves to kind of look from above as we begin to imagine and understand the concept of silos. Like we can look down at ourselves and say, how am I siloed? What am I proving? What do I believe is too much, or how do I believe that this person has responded wrongly to me? How am I not hearing the love? Now, we don't want to, send people who are in abusive relationships back to the abusive relationships. That's not the point here. We don't want to facilitate people's pain. But if you listen slightly differently, what do you hear? What do we hear? And it's quite extraordinary. I think one of the first times that we were together, I spoke about this story, that my mother did not appreciate my body type. And she spent years telling me that I was fat. And it was very painful. And gradually over time, as I became exposed to nonviolent communication and this idea that Everything is please or thank you. I said to her finally one day, are you really worried about me? Do you really want people to like me and for me to have ease and social connection and for people to like me and help me and admire me? She says, yes. And then it was another year and a half before she made comments on my body style again. And I did something similar, and she was actually quiet about it for the rest of her life. And this was like, I did this, at age 50.
Wow.
So, yeah. So
the drivers behind certain actions are always amazing to me. And my driver behind the action of blowing past another commercial here, we'll need to take a quick commercial. They all know that I do this, but especially with Sarah, because I just am always so intrigued at the depth of transformation that can happen by understanding how our nervous system reacts and how to talk to that part of us that needs to be heard. So I'll be right back and we'll talk to Sarah some more.
Your conscious lifestyle on steroids. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Change and growth are part of natural life and also part of your spiritual life. Everyone needs support and guidance, especially during life passages. Upgrade yourself with the OMTimes Experts program. With OMTimes Experts, you have access to the best intuitive coaches, spiritual teachers, counselors, astrologists, and oracles. Our team was carefully selected so you can trust. Find out more at experts.omtimes.com.
Grab a cup of tea or a glass of wine and tune in for Inspired Conversations with publisher Linda Joy on Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern. Linda creates sacred space for leading female luminaries, empowering authors, heart-centered female entrepreneurs, coaches, and healers. A soulful venue where guests openly share the fears and obstacles they've overcome, wisdom and lessons learned, and the personal journey that led them to the transformational work they do in the world. Inspired Conversations to empower you on your path to authentic, soulful living.
Research shows we apologize up to 10 times a day, and most of the time, we say sorry as a response to someone else's mistake. What if we thanked people instead of all that unnecessary apologizing? So instead of saying, sorry, I'm rambling, you say, thank you for listening. Join us at projectforgive.com, a free, non-religious resource on global forgiveness.
Hi, this is Sharon, and of course you know me from here on the Autoimmune Hour. Maybe you don't know I'm also an author. My latest book is for kids. It's Pinky Chenille and the Rainbow Hunters, a winner of a 5-star Reader's Favorite review. It's perfect for your early reader and a great bedtime story for your young adventurers. Check it out over at pinkychenille.com. That's PinkyChenille.com. See you there. Welcome back, everyone, to the Autoimmune Hour. You should hear us on commercials. I'm sort of laughing in my voice. I can't help it, but that's because I just adore this woman, not only for her brilliance and her knowledge, but she is the most awesome human being. One of those people I just put right out there in the word adore. And her name is Sarah Peyton. She's an international speaker and facilitator and the author of the groundbreaking, life-changing book called Your Resonant Self. And I hope you've been enjoying this conversation as much as I have. And we're down to the last few minutes, Sarah, but I took you down a little rabbit hole, but I want to come back out of it for a second because I want to make sure that I understand this concept of nonviolent communication. It's either please or thank you. Please go into a little more.
Yeah. So if we were saying that my mother's statement was either please or thank you, then she was saying, please be loved. Please be loved. And she had a particular idea about what let people be loved. Didn't include my body style, but that's okay. once we got it named, she relaxed. So there was an example of her please, so, and
well, now I have to backtrack for Sarah.
Yeah.
I mean, and if this, is not the right place to do it, but I can logically understand, okay, that was, the body style wasn't in her frame of reference.
Yeah.
But for me, that would still leave me like, well, that's nothing I can change.
Oh, absolutely. Nothing I can change. And also, this is serious stuff. This is Sarah as a grown-up getting enough support to come back and decode a very traumatized mama, right?
Mm-hmm.
Using those kinds of words with people actually impacts and scars the brain. So if we know that we received these kinds of words when we were little, if we were told we were fat, if we were told we were ugly, if we were told that we weren't good enough, if we were told that we were a burden, all of those things are verbal abuse, and they impact the verbal cortex, and they impact the way that the white matter and the gray matter interact in the brain. So it's very important that we acknowledge the extent to which the more that we can learn kindness in our language, and the more gentle and resonant and precise we are with our communication, the more gentle we are with each other's brains, especially with children's brains. So just wanting to be really, really take it seriously, but to show that even with this really intense stuff that can be called verbal abuse, once we are supported, fully emotionally supported, it doesn't have to go down the same, doesn't have to be have the same sort of horrifying impact that it has for little ones who don't have anybody else. So just wanting to name that. Can we come back to your question, Sharon?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you about the please and the thank you. And my one question I had, though, on the response, where it's something we can't change, and perhaps the other party is not evolved enough to understand the internal conversation I'm currently having because that. What are some things we can say to ourselves to calm that part about acknowledging the lack of understanding or the lack of experience of the other person? And how can we talk to ourselves to reframe?
Yeah. To do this, we come back to this idea that the body is sending messages that the mind, when the mind catches those messages, then a complete circuit is made and there's a relaxation. So if I were to say to myself, so let's go back to this moment with my friend, when my friend said, "Good luck with that." For me to say, "Sarah, are you shocked? Do you need acknowledgement that you suddenly feel," and here we can go, "an alarmed aloneness? Do you have a sense of a sudden loss of your friend? Do you have a sense of being suddenly terribly alone and not being understood and not having your celebration caught? Is there shame in the experience and collapse in the experience of not being caught?" So as we begin to be able to catch ourselves and hold sort of the little ones within us who are so innocently bringing our hearts to each other, then as we catch our own innocent hearts and say to ourselves, of course you would experience overwhelm and shock and dismay and shame. Because each of those things that I'm naming, I'm catching a body message that's coming up through the right vagus nerve, through the right part of the brain stem, up into the right insula, and the brain is catching and naming, and the insula is going, yes, that's a good naming. Relaxation. So as we get used to this, it's quite an interesting journey of self-warmth and self-care and self-accompaniment.
I love that. And we're going to have to end right there. Oh my gosh, I am so sad. And I'm naming that. I am so sad. But we're down to the last 3 minutes, Sarah. And I want everybody to know about your book and your website and I know these amazing workshops that you give. So share with us how people can find more about you. And of course, everyone, we're having her back on.
Oh, how fun. I'm so happy. Empathybrain.com, one word, or yourresonantself.com. There's little animated book video with me on it. It talks about the resonance, the idea of resonance. That's RESONANT, resonant. Sort of sounds like your resident self, but it's resonant.
I'm glad you clarified that, because it is an easy word to confuse. We'll have it up there on the show description as well.
Yeah.
Now, you also give monthly workshops and amazing things like that. Talk a little bit about how people can learn more with you.
Take a look at the website, and there's different ways to learn. There's a monthly webinar where I explore some new concept, and then there are small online courses that are experiential, where you get to experience some of this stuff yourself, coming to in-person workshops all over the world.
Absolutely, everyone. Sarah, you can see how she is changing the world, and I want you all to join her on this journey of resonance language, because it is so powerful. It's changed my life tremendously and helped me through the healing journeys as I begin to understand it at a deeper level and talk nicer to myself. One of the new areas they're finding with autoimmune, now they're not saying that this causes autoimmune, but being able to uncover and heal the past traumas really helps you on your healing journey when you can lower the cortisol and the stress and a lot of those things that cause that nervous pain. But everyone, we're out of time. Sarah, thank you so much. I can't begin to tell you, this was another transformative experience for us today. And everyone, join us over at understandingautoimmune.com. Find out more and be able to listen to the show, share the show with others, and visit us on Facebook as well. Have a great week, whatever your adventures. Enjoy.
The information provided on the Autoimmune Hour, Understanding Autoimmune, and Life Interrupted Radio, including the websites understandingautoimmune.com and lifeinterruptedradio.com, plus social media, is for educational purposes only. What you read, hear, and see on the Autoimmune Hour, Understanding Autoimmune, and Life Interrupted Radio, and its websites, and other media outlets is based on experience only. The information should never be used for any legal, diagnostic, or treatment purposes. Always seek sound legal, medical, and or professional advice regarding any problems, conditions, and any of the recommendations you see, hear, or read here on the Autoimmune Hour, Understanding Autoimmune, and Life Interrupted Radio.